بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. We lived the atmosphere of Surat Yusuf alayhi salam. The longest surah mentioned in one place in the Quran, and we all followed with the story on 2 days now, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala started from the very beginning all the way until the surah ends. And inshallah in a few minutes, even though the lessons to derive from Surat Yusuf takes so long to just reflect on. But together let's try to derive and extract and take some lessons from Surat Yusuf alayhi salam. Why? What is the significance of the story of, somebody who, got lost, and then, the story is mentioned in detail. We read it and it's detailed. One lesson as we are going through the surah is very clear that no matter what happened to you, even though it's all against what you think is good for you, no matter how many are the circumstances coming against you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a plan for you. You never know. Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam, follow with me. How many crises, how many disasters happened to him? Number one, from the beginning, what happened to him? He was thrown into the well by whom? By his own blood brothers. By his own brothers. And that's obviously a very clear, aggressive thing. That's one thing. A few days after that, he ended up being what? What happened to him next? Before being accused of anything. He was kidnapped, he was taken and being sold as a slave. Not even any slave. وَشَرَوْهُ بِثَمَنٍ بَخْسٍ. They sold him for a very trivial amount of money. And who is Yusuf? Anybody remember the hadith of the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam? How did he define, or how did he introduce Sayyidina Yusuf to us? Al-Karim, Ibn al-Karim, Ibn al-Karim, Ibn al-Karim. He is the noble, he's a prophet, from a noble family, the son of noble, who is his father, Yaqub alayhi salam. The grandson of a noble, Ishaq. The great-grandson of Al-Karim. All of them are Qurama, Ibrahim alayhi salam. And then ended up being sold as a slave, and for a very trivial amount of money. That's number two, but that's not it. Number three, a few years after that, he grew up. What's going to happen to him? He grew up as a slave. What's going to happen to him? He will be tempted by his own master or mistress, who was in charge of him, and غَلَّقَتِ الْأَبْوَابِ and all of that. And he was a young person. He was actually very handsome. And she was, in the narrations, very beautiful lady. And she is the one who is asking him, who is posing herself to him. And actually, he will be in trouble if he didn't respond positively. But then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will save him somehow from this thing. But how did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save him? فاستجاب, he made dua to Allah, and the dua, Allah told us in the Quran, فاستجاب له ربه فصرف عنه كيدهن. Story, we don't want to go into details, but the temptation or the seduction failed. But then everybody was talking about this lady, how she is seducing her own slave. And then she invited them to show them how beautiful he is. And they ended up saying, if he would not do what we are asking him to do, if he would not respond to me, I will send him to prison. And he ended up being in prison. And he is innocent, in a case that he is innocent. He didn't commit any crime. Actually, he was completely innocent. The other one was the person who was supposed to be in prison. But then in prison, what will happen next? He stayed in prison, فَلَبِثَ فِي السِّجْنِ, so many years first, and then things will happen in the prison, and then he will come out of the prison to start, we counted together like 4 or 5 crises. If one thing of these things happen to me and you, that will be the end for anybody of us. If you are betrayed by your own, closest ones, that's a crisis. If you are being sold, it's not going to happen. But if you are being not dealt with that you're supposed to, that's the opposite. So many things happen to Sayyidina Yusuf. All of them turn to be good for him. He will come out of the prison. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will show that he is innocent from all of that, and then he will go to the king, and the king will ask him, to appoint him somewhere, and Sayyidina Yusuf will ask him, قال اجعلني على خزائن الأرض إني حفيظ عليم, put me in charge of, the treasury, because I am qualified for that. Everything turned to his favor after that. But after how long? After so many years. You never know. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what's good for you. Go according to the plan of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and inshallah things will turn good for you. Only إِنَّهُ مَنْ يَتَّقِ وَيَصْبِرُ. We read it twice in the surah. Those who have taqwa and patience to Allah, فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُضِيعُ أَجْرَ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. Allah will not waste their reward. That's one lesson that we learn. Whatever comes to your way, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a plan for you. مِنْ بَطْنِ الْمِحَنْ تَأْتِ الْمِنَحِ. From the very crisis and trouble and problems and turmoils and tests, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you a gift. That's one lesson I can talk about. A couple of other lessons quickly. What do we learn? What do we take from Surat Yusuf? If we can share together, sisters and brothers, inshallah. What do you get as you're reading? Patience. Patience. That's so clear. You have to be patient. Whatever comes your way, be patient. We are here in Ramadan to learn patience to the utmost, inshallah. نعم. نعم. Be satisfied with whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decides for you. Anything else you read?
Positive attitude when he talked to his father, told him that Alhamdulillah الذي أخرجني من السجن. He did not mention about the bear.
That's a very good one. Positive attitude, we read it all over the surah. All over the surah. Did you see Yusuf anywhere complaining? Like he made dua to Allah, oh Allah saved me from them. Allah said he saved him, and then he got to the prison. He never said, why did you do that to me? Or he never said that when he was, when all the other crises happened to him. Be patient and have positive attitude and use the circumstances. As he was in the prison, he was making da'wah. He was talking to these fellow inmates in the prison. He was giving da'wah to them, reaching out and talking to them. And then the way he was dealing with them, the way he was dealing with the inmates with him, he was dealing in a very beautiful way that they were describing. Tell us the interpretation of this dream, because we see you a perfect person, we see you a good person. Even when he was in prison, he was a good person. Another lesson that we learned, he was cast in the prison by, as a result of corruption, total corruption. When the man, the husband, that his master discovered that it was his wife that seduced his slave, he said, well, astaghfirli dhanbik, ask forgiveness, and Yusuf just turned away, a'rad an hada, never mind, and stuff like this, and then they ended up casting him in prison. So that was obvious, there was individual zulm from this lady and this person, and it was the system that was corrupt. It was this system that did not achieve justice to him. But nevertheless, what happened to him at the end, when the king saw the dream, and then he was good at interpreting the dreams. And then they ended up, the person who was with him in the prison came out, and he came out of prison, and then he came to know about the dream or the vision of the king. And then he remembered, yes, I used to have a fellow inmate in the prison who is good at that. He came to Sayyidina Yusuf, Ayyuha as-Siddiq aftina, tell us. Now, put yourself in the position of Yusuf alayhi salam, somebody in the prison, being oppressed by obviously the system somehow, and the individuals. And now the chance came to him, and you are talking about a dream that he knows. He knows that, the interpretation of the dream is that a big problem gonna happen to this nation, a famine is gonna happen to this nation down in a few years, and he is probably the only one who knows about that then. What would you do? Probably you give them a wrong interpretation. Let them go to hell, because I'm in the prison and they cast me in prison. I'm not going to give them the right interpretation until then everything is going to be good, don't do anything. No, actually he gave them the right interpretation, and he gave them the action plan, what to do. They're going to come to you 7 years, good, flourishing, and you will be booming. So what you have to do, you eat just a little bit and then keep the rest, because 7 other years will come that you will be, famine will strike badly, and you have to save. And the way he even told them how to save it, فَذَرُوهُ فِي سُنْبُلِهِ. Keep it in the ears, keep the wheat the grain in the ears, keep it. He told them how to even save it. So he gave them a full detailed plan for a country or a state that was not Muslim, that was bad, that was corrupt even. Because if you are good, you will be always standing for good. That works for us here, living in the West. Many people talking about this country as country of kuffar, dawlat, such. Yes, they are not Muslims, fine. But you are Muslim, you are good, you carry goodness for everybody. Sayyidina Yusuf was there and he was even oppressed by the system, not enjoying so many good things as we are, alhamdulillah. Yes, we have flaws for the system in here, but other systems elsewhere, they don't have anything good. So we are enjoying good things here. Let's do like Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam, carry goodness for others as well. He helped saving the nation, Egypt at this time, for so many years to come. And it was actually, he was saving, by saving Egypt, he was saving the entire, neighboring countries, because people at the time of famine were coming all the way to Egypt to take, the food and stuff like this. All of that because of the permission of Allah and Ibn al-Azajal, and because of the sincerity of Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam. We can talk forever about the story of Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam, but definitely the time is very limited. I keep inshallah ta'ala, give me just 1 minute, and tomorrow inshallah we are waiting for the Khatira brother Dr. Jalal inshallah. Jazakumullah khair wa sallallahu alaihi wa sallam.